What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. And we're back with another incredible guest. My next guest is a best-selling romance author turned global speaker and coach, known for helping high-achieving women heal from narcissistic abuse and step boldly into the life they truly deserve. Please welcome Marysol James. Marysol, welcome to the show.
Hi, Deanna. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So how many romance novels do you have? There's quite a lot from what I remember.
I've been writing for 10 years. It's been 10 years this month, I think, and I've written 32 romance novels spread over six series in that time.
Wow. And what keeps you motivated with the romance? Because that's got to
Well,
be kind of
it's
fun.
it's interesting you ask that because I was in a very non-supportive, narcissistic, abusive relationship for 6 years of sort of the 10, right? And uh, I was living with him for four. And it's interesting because in the time we lived together, I only wrote three books. So if you
Hmm.
do the math, I've written 29 books before and since him, right?
Wow.
So what kept me going before was I just loved writing. I
Yeah.
loved romance. I was in love with love. And then I lost it when I was with him. So, what keeps me going now is just the rediscovery of my voice and that amazing freedom to express myself that I took for granted before him. I didn't know what I had until I lost it for
Yeah.
that 4 years. So now what keeps me going is just that beautiful reminder that I have my voice back. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to lose it again.
We're going to get into the dynamics of that and why you are a coach now focusing on women that are
Sure.
surviving narcissistic abuse. But you ever see that movie, Romancing the Stone?
Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
Like that's kind of reminds me of that. Like, she was a romance novelist, and then she went on the whole adventure trying to save her sister, I think. And then her next book became, just like, have you had any adventures like that?
I so wish.
Oh,
No. I mean, I've lived all over the world. I'm from Canada originally, and I'm
okay.
in England now. And in between, I've lived in Poland and then China proper, and then Hong Kong, and then back to Poland, and now in England. And in Poland and England, I've actually moved to more than one location, like more than one city or town. So I honestly feel like I've been picking up and moving my life not just across like countries, but continents for
Yeah.
ever, just forever. And travel brings it. And I've been traveling. I have just
Yeah.
because I lived in Asia. I mean, I also traveled to Cambodia, India, Vietnam, Thailand, like
Sure.
Bangladesh, and they all bring their own adventures. 100%. It's why I miss travel,
Yeah.
because travel is just such an adventure. And it happens easily when you're traveling. You don't even have to go looking for it.
Yeah.
Travel is the adventure.
Yeah.
So I'd like to get back to that as soon as I can. But in
I'm
terms of like sweeping romance, no, not really. Maybe my ex-husband, it was a great romantic story. And it even ended with a lot of respect and health and maturity. And
good.
it really, yeah, really great. I suppose that might be kind of my big love story would be my ex-husband. It was a
Okay.
tragic ending, but it was a very, very healthy ending, which is quite rare, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you there. So this is not the man that was a narcissist to you. Okay.
No, the narcissist came along right as my marriage was kind of over,
Okay.
and my ex-husband had a girlfriend by then, and it was fine with me. Like
Yeah.
we were living together, but he was seeing somebody. They're still together, actually. Maybe that's his big love story, is the
Mm.
woman who is after me, because they're still together. But the first relationship after my ex-husband was the narcissist, and he walked right in right after the marriage ended and just sort of offered me everything that my ex hadn't been able to. He was perfect, and I am using the air quotes
Of course.
on
Yeah.
on purpose. He was perfect. Yeah.
It's very interesting that we can attract that. I think we attract that into our lives.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things I talk about a lot, if we're talking about label free, there's this idea that if you're a successful, really intelligent, educated, smart, worldly woman, there's no way you're going to be emotionally abused. Like,
Right.
there's no way you're going to fall into this mess because you're too savvy, right? And I think we have to start understanding that high achieving women are targets for narcissists. Like, we attract them for a multitude of reasons, but the biggest one, and I think the most obvious, when I say it, women go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Um, Narcissists love to have something shiny on their arm that makes them look good.
Yeah.
So the better you are, like the better you look, the more accomplished you are, they get reflected glory from
Yeah.
you. And that's exactly something that when you, as soon as you say it, high achieving women say, yeah, actually, that makes a lot of sense. But at the time, they feel like I should have known better, which is a very unfair thing. And it's a lot of pressure to put
Yeah.
on ourselves.
And I also, and so I love this subject because it's like even though it's talked about and there's a lot of women that are standing up to it and, and trying to like expose more of it in this pattern that happens, it's like there's something that is lacking within us that we feel like I almost think that a man that comes along that treats us that way as a narcissist, it like kind of it fills this void that we have, and then it was a false person that we allowed into our lives, and then it turns into this abusive cycle.
Mhm. Well, it's, I call it a wounded strength. This is something that I've learned to
A
call it
wounded.
a wounded strength
Yeah.
because
Interesting.
it's something that's maybe happened to us. And a
Yeah.
lot of the women that I work with, it happened in childhood, but it doesn't have to start in childhood. Or they assume that it was some kind of abuse or maybe a narcissistic parent, but it doesn't have to be. But whatever it is, it's something that has driven us forward and made us successful, usually in a really professional way. It's given us grit, it's given us ambition, it's given us independence, it's given us resilience. That's why I call it a wounded strength,
Yeah.
because it is a strength, but it is a wound that we carry. And we don't tend to know it until a narcissistic or emotionally abusive person comes along and they identify it and they play into it and
Yeah.
they relieve it. Like they give us this thing that we really deeply ache for, and we don't
Yeah.
even know it a lot of the time. So this thing that really works for us in our professional life, that really has made us empathetic and successful and hardworking, keeps us trapped in the narcissistic relationship
Yeah.
because this man was the only person in my entire life who ever gave me what I so desperately needed and wanted. And I didn't even know that I needed and wanted it. So, this is something that women really need to, when I work with them, one of the first things we do is we talk about that wounded strength. And it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's so important to identify because until you know your wounded strength, you will carry on being vulnerable in future relationships. This is why you see so many smart women repeating the same abusive patterns. It's
Yeah.
because they haven't called it yet. And that's really hard to do because it's something that you say, well, it's made me so strong. It's made me so successful. It has. It's also made you vulnerable.
Yeah.
And two things can be true at once.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that is really important to recognize and talk about. And it is not discussed nearly enough.
No. Can I ask what were the things that you were lacking that he filled for you?
Well, my wounded strength, it turns out, and this is something that I've only discovered myself since leaving him, because I really had to ask myself, how did he sneak in there? Like, what
Yeah.
did he give me,
Yeah.
that I couldn't seem to get from anybody else? And my personal story is that when I was 9 years old, I was diagnosed with cancer. And I lived in the hospital for 3 years. So I was completely removed from the home. I
Wow.
was removed from all like normal society, school,
Yeah.
friends, swim team, my brother and sister. It was me in the hospital on a cancer ward for 3 years. And those
Wow.
were formative years, 9 to
Yes.
12, right?
Yeah.
And so I learned during that time that I had to take care of myself. And I didn't allow myself to have emotional needs because there was nobody there to meet them. The staff were amazing. My doctor was a miracle worker, but they weren't, it's not their job to be my mother or my father
Right.
or, you know. So during that time, I became incredibly independent and resilient and strong and tough and all of these things.
Hmm.
And I just learned to carry my emotional needs in myself
Yeah.
because I couldn't trust or expect or demand it from others. So this when I left the hospital, I just kind of picked up my life and carried on. I went back to school, I rejoined the
Yeah.
swim team, all of that. And I just kind of carried on like nothing had happened. You know,
Yeah.
this was a long time ago as well. There wasn't the sort of proper understanding of therapy and
Oh, yeah.
impact on psyche. I mean, I'm 53. So this was like 31 years ago. I
Oh,
left the
wow.
hospital, really.
Yeah.
41 years ago, right? So, 41 years ago, yeah. And I just kind of carried on and it made me motivated. It made me
Yeah.
hardworking. It made me strong. It made me
It was traumatizing.
independent,
It was
all of these
traumatizing.
things. It was. And then
Yeah.
this guy came along and he immediately told me, like pretty much immediately, he said, you don't have to do it by yourself anymore. Give some of it to me. Let me carry
Oh,
some
there
of
you
it.
go. Yep.
And I had never had anyone, like not my parents, not a friend, not my husband, not a man, nobody had ever said to me, you know what, you don't have to be so strong all the time. You don't have to do everything yourself. Like hand something over to me. And honestly, Deanna, I felt like I was so seen. Like I felt like he understood this aching, longing thing inside of me that this little girl who just wanted someone to just take care of her, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he just really spoke to that. And so when he began to change and he began to devalue me, I panicked because I thought I had done something to make that man go away.
Right.
Like,
Right.
why wasn't
Yeah.
he treating me like this anymore? Why
Yeah.
was he being so negative? Why was he being so cold? Why was he being so judgmental? And I completely panicked because the one person in the world who said, let me carry some of it for you, was now handing it back to me and walking away. And I thought, oh
Yeah.
my God, you
Yeah.
know, and it happens so slowly. It's not like
Nope.
1 minute he's amazing and then it takes
Nope.
months. And he and I had a long distance relationship for 2 years. So for 2 years, it wasn't hard for him to maintain the relationship on this
Sure.
level but as soon as we moved in together, within 3 months of us moving in together, flip.
Wow.
And
It's like the
yeah,
Chinese torture. They drip it,
yes.
drip, drip, drip a little bit of like just like picking away at you and reducing your self-esteem and lowering you to what you feel is like you're nothing.
Well, and my other thing was abandonment. I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are afraid of abandonment, but in my case, I truly was because my family would come visit me and then they would leave. They would
Yeah.
just leave me in that hospital room where it was like cold and clinical, and I lived in a place where children died every week
Oh,
because it was a cancer ward.
oh,
So I dealt with a lot. And so as soon as he said I would say something to him, he would do something really, really inappropriate or abusive or whatever, and I would call him on it. And then he would say, okay, well, I'm out of here. And I would
yep.
panic because there he is
Yeah.
pressing on that wound. So my wound was all to do with that 3 years in the hospital. That, on the one hand, has made me so strong, obviously,
Yeah.
and so resilient. But on the other, it's left me quite vulnerable
Yeah.
to a man who looked at me and said, aha, I see what she needs. And narcissists do this. They feel you out, they figure out where your vulnerabilities and weaknesses are, and then they fill them in for you. And that's how they become the dream man, is they give you what they know you want and need, and then they start to pull it back. And that's where the control takes over. And then it just all goes
Yeah.
straight to hell from
Yeah.
there,
Oh
really.
yeah, I've experienced it myself. And when you're in it, which I find very interesting now looking back, right? Hindsight,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was just like, why was it so hard for me to leave? Why was it so hard for me to get away when I knew all the alarms were going off, but I kept in it thinking it was going to come back around again and it was going to get back to how it started. And and not only that, but like that what you talked about, that cycle of control that happens is very, very scary to they make it almost to just to put the fear of God in you so you don't leave.
Well, it's also, I mean, it's a lot of things. Like I talked
Yeah.
about this wounded strength that they press on and press on and press on. And then they show up as your dream man,
Yeah.
saying and doing all the right things to make you fall in love with them because they need that. You have to be in love with them for all of this to work. So what do?
Yeah.
They show up as your dream man. But then you're right, the devaluation and the chipping away starts, and you do panic because you feel like this man from the beginning is slipping away,
Yeah.
and he's making it very clear to you that it's your fault, that you're doing something wrong. So
And
it
we
all
believe it.
leaves,
We always
and
believe it.
yeah, well, and this is part of what makes us strong, successful women is we accept feedback. Like if somebody says something to us about what we
Yeah.
do at work and they say, well, this was great, but you need to work on this, we say, I'll take that on board. I'll work on that.
Yeah.
So when somebody who claims to love you is giving you feedback,
Yeah.
you say, okay, that's fair. I'll take that on board. But the problem with the narcissist is they're not giving you honest feedback. They're telling you what they need to control you and make you doubt yourself. That is not loving support or feedback to make you a better person. That is twisting the knife to regain control. And the other problem is you get into this push pull thing with them where they're either full on positive or they're full on negative.
Yeah.
And you get so you don't, it's unpredictable, and you
Yeah.
get addicted to the cycle of
Yep.
ups and downs and ups and downs. And your whole body starts to respond chemically to it. So you actually become chemically addicted to the cycle, the way that
Ooh,
any
no
other
one's ever
addict would
said
be.
that. No one's ever
It is
said that
true.
before.
It is true. It's
Wow.
100% true. And worse than the chemical dependencies of addiction, it's called a trauma bond, where you're literally
Yes.
trauma bonded. That's what it is. It's the push pull, it's the chemical reaction in your body. It also rewires your brain. So you are constantly, it's almost like, that movie Predator, where the predator could scan the environment
Yes.
and see everything. You become like Predator and you start to scan your environment for dangers and his mood and whatever. He walks in the house and you're scanning him to see
Yeah.
who's coming. Is it the nice guy or the horrible guy? And that's what we mean by walking on eggshells, is it's just this existence where you are hyper aware of his emotional state of being
Yeah.
and you're completely separated from your own because everything becomes about keeping him happy.
Yeah.
And when everything becomes about keeping him happy, you lose yourself 100%, which is what happened to me. And I think probably what happened to you based on what we talked about as well last time
Yeah.
we spoke. So you just start to lose yourself in this
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. I from my previous experience of being with the narcissist, like I've really learned how to fight for who I am, and I will not allow anyone to like convince me otherwise. Like, no, 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 no. You're not gonna start playing that manipulation stuff on me because I got you. I see you. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that, you have to, if you've gone through something like that and you've begun to heal, you should be able to pick up on that moving forward in other relationships and not allowing that pattern to happen again. Like I just will, I will fight to the death. Like you want to go, let's go. Well, let's battle. Like you are not going to take away who I am. If you don't like who I am, leave. There's the door. I don't need you.
So did you figure out what was your wounded strength that these men were tapping into?
I think there's a lot of wounded strength. I have abandonment too. My father left at a very
Yes.
young age. It was very abusive. My mother was very abusive. Like I went to the food pantry at 16, which was very traumatizing for me thinking back. Like even now, I'm just like, holy cow, I was exposed to that. I worked like 3 jobs, giving half my checks to my mom. Just there's a lot there. And
Yeah.
there's still stuff there today, but at least now I'm able to recognize it, right? And
Mhm.
so kind of similar things, just different experiences.
Well, I think things like abandonment are such huge words that
Yeah,
therapists will use and say, "Oh, you have a fear of abandonment." It's like, "Well, what does that mean?" Like for
yeah,
me, it was my family walking out of the hospital
yeah,
and leaving me there. For you, it was maybe your father leaving.
yes,
I don't, or your mother leaving, right? Abandonment is one of these huge words that doesn't mean anything unless you bring it down to an individual level.
yeah,
And until you do, until like the women that I work with really are open and honest about what it is that made them vulnerable, they will repeat the cycles.
yeah,
Unlike you, who has broken it. However, you've broken it, you've broken it. And so have I. But that took a lot of work on
yeah.
ourselves, I
A lot of
think. And
work.
it's amazing how many women just they get out of the relationship and they are so confused and they are so traumatized and they are so sure it was their fault, but they don't have the vocabulary for what happened to them. And this is
Hmm.
when I work with them,
Okay.
they find out a lot because when they say, "Oh, I did this thing and it was me," and I go, "Well, let's look at it this way," and they go,
Yeah.
"Oh," and I say, "That is the narcissistic playbook. That's called gaslighting." You
Yeah.
know,
So these women
um,
don't even know that they have no idea, like they think that it was all their fault, but they got
well,
out.
I remember I left the relationship. I walked away from him because I just knew that I couldn't do it anymore and it felt horrible. And I was looking in the mirror and I literally didn't recognize my face. And I was crying in the shower every morning and every night. And I just knew I couldn't do this anymore. But it
Yeah.
wasn't until I got out of it that I actually saw how abusive it was. It's
Mhm.
hard to see when you're in it because you're
Yeah.
surviving it, right?
Yeah.
You're getting through it. And there's always this idea that it can't be abuse because I'm a high achieving woman. Like
Mhm.
I'm supposed to be immune to this, right?
Yeah.
And it isn't until you leave it and the smoke clears and then you
Yeah.
kind of get the full field of vision that you start to say, wait a minute, there's no way this was all me. There is no way this was all me.
Yeah.
But you have to get out of it to see it properly. And it's really hard to get out of it if you don't see it properly.
Yeah. And that kind of shocks me that these high achieving successful women are so detached to get out of the relationship and think that it was them. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's clearly a sign that they need to do some work and kind of figure out why they landed up in that relationship to begin with, so that they don't repeat that pattern. Because at this point in
Yes.
my life, like, no, 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 you're not putting all the blame on me, honey. It's not happening. It takes two to tango, and like there have been relationships, in the past where after I've had my experiences where they would try to make me take on that role and like kind of beat me down. And like you sit there and like at first you're a little, for me personally, I was a little dumbfounded. Then I was like, wait a second, you're not going to manipulate me into thinking
Mm.
differently. And it's like you really have to become strong and knowing, like, not allowing someone to twist your brain up into a pretzel. And I've actually said that. I said, you're not going to twist my brain into a pretzel. You're with the wrong one if you think that's going to happen. Not happening.
Mm.
Absolutely
No,
not.
100%.
And so,
100%.
and I think that it shocks them when you say something like that, because I think even if a man is not a narcissist, but he's used to having control, he will try to pull some of those tricks with you as well. And you have to really stand your ground. And as much as you love that person, you think that they want the best for you. It's not okay for them to manipulate you into something and thinking otherwise when you are an intelligent human being, right? No.
No, 100%. And the thing is that, people can behave badly in relationships because they're having a bad day or they're in a bad
Yes.
place or something has happened and they're taking it out on you because you're there. And that is an example of bad behavior. But if you call them on it and you can talk about it and they own it,
Yes.
you're still in a healthy relationship.
Yep.
The problem with the narcissist is it's a pattern of behavior. And no matter how many times you call them on it or how many times you try to sit down and have a discussion about it, it's not going to get better. It's always going to get twisted around and thrown back on you. you're going to always end up apologizing, even though you're not in the wrong. And the cycle continues. So it's really possible to be with someone who's just kind of a jerk, but
Yeah.
not a narcissist,
Yeah.
right? Like kind of an idiot about relationships.
Yeah.
So this is where, when I work with my clients, we kind of talk about the patterns, like the patterns. And
Yeah.
there is like a narcissistic playbook that they just go
Oh,
down.
yeah.
And this is why when I'm working with someone and she says, "You're not going to believe what happened." And I say, "Let me tell you what happened." And I'll tell her, and she'll say, "How did you know that?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Only because it happened to me. It happened to my other clients. It happens to narcissistic abuse victims all over the world. There is a playbook. They
Yeah.
all behave the same way."
Yeah.
And
It's
it's
interesting.
it's a relief for them to know that it's not just them because you always think it's just you.
Yeah,
But
for
on the
sure.
other hand, you sort of say to them, like, you're not that special. It's happened to a lot of women. So take comfort in that. Don't think it's all you. Like, don't think that you were alone in this, that you were so awful as a human being and a partner that you created this mess. Don't think that. You're not that powerful. It's a pattern
Yeah.
of behavior that you got sucked into and participated in. Now, let's talk about why.
Yeah.
And that's where I can start to work with them. As soon as they understand that they participated in it, like I did,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
know why I did, you know why you did. And that's where the real strength comes from, is from understanding why we went along with it. Even after we had met him as our dream man, but he started to change. Why did we keep trying to get that first persona back? Why did we keep trying to go back to the beginning? Why? And that's where we have to work on ourselves. That's where
Yeah.
we can take responsibility, and we have to take responsibility. Like
Absolutely.
we can't be blamed for their behavior and manipulation and abuse, but we have to take responsibility for why we are, which wounded strength made us vulnerable to it. And
Yeah.
then we have to own it, claim it, repossess it, and then say, well, it's my wound. And the next man who comes along and starts stomping on it, I have to go because now I see how it makes me vulnerable.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that's how it's done. That's how you move forward in a healthy way.
I love it. With that being said, Marisol, where can people find you, work with you, and learn more about your coaching services and your books?
Okay, well, if you want my books, if you
Yeah.
they're quite steamy, so just
Ooh, la
be
la.
warned. They're quite steamy. So if you want to find my books, they're at marysoljamesromance.com,
Okay. Hmm.
or just find me on Amazon. Just put my name into Amazon, all my books come up there. If you want my coaching services, and I also do speaking at summits, events, I'm starting to work with businesses that have high achieving women on their staff. A lot of companies are into wellness and HR now and mental health of their employees. So if you
Yeah.
want to find any of those services, that is at marysoljamescoaching.com. And you
Perfect.
can contact me there. You can find this podcast. I'll put the link up there. So my media is on there.
Okay.
And just you can buy my programs there. You can work with me there.
Okay.
So if you want my books, one place. If you
Yep.
want my coaching and my speaking, somewhere else. I
Fantastic.
keep them quite separate.
Yes, good idea. Fantastic. You guys, I'm gonna put those links in the show notes and here on the screen
Great.
if you're watching. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about her coaching, if you're a high achieving woman that has kind of been exposed to a narcissist, go reach out to her. I'm sure she'd love to have a conversation, whether you work with her or not. And if you are a romance novel fan, go check her out on
Yeah.
Amazon or at the link below. Marisol, this
Yeah.
is the part of the show where I like to ask for last words of wisdom or advice. What would you like to leave with us today?
I am a huge believer in healthy love, and I am a huge believer in romance. I'm a huge believer even in soulmates. I do believe that we can be better with someone else than on our own. I am also a huge believer in knowing ourselves enough to be open to true healthy love.
Mm,
So that's what I wish for all of us, all your listeners, everybody else. I wish you healthy love. And if you can't have it right now, go read some of my go read some of my steamy romance.
yes, I love it.
Yeah.
I think
Healthy love all around.
amen to that. I love healthy love. Well, Marysol, thank you so much for sharing your story and educating us about that wounded strength, because that's something I've never heard before, and it makes complete sense. And I hope that it opens up someone's eyes that might be listening to this and is going through something that we've both experienced. It's never a fun place to be, and it's really hard to get out of, but just know you are not alone. So make sure you go contact Marysol if you need some help. But thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you, Deanna. It's been a pleasure.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I look forward to seeing you next